Happy March, everybody. Happy St. David's Day to you, but especially you, Gareth Wheeler. We are back for another episode of One Soccer Today. Oliver Platt somewhere on a beach in Los Angeles by this point, I can only imagine. So it is just three of us today. And it's going to give Gareth and Jordan especially a lot of time to sink their teeth into a show with much to get to. Major League Soccer, CONCACAF Champions Cup, of course, the W Gold Cup. So Jordan's going to get some back stretches after this from carrying the show. You know what I'm saying? Let's start with Major League Soccer because we had 2 0-0 draws to kick off the campaigns for CF Montreal and Toronto FC last weekend. Vancouver Whitecaps will get things underway this weekend against Charlotte. And in the lead up, Gareth Wheeler, to all of these, the season openers for any league, you always hear from the coaches and the columnists and the personalities who you think is going to slot in where. We know your appropriately timed power rankings are a smashing success. MLS did their own version of this. Over 20 celebrities were interviewed, and they weren't particularly kind to the Canadian MLS sides. None of the three inside the top 20. You have the Caps at 21, Montreal at 24, and TFC at 25. So I guess the question is, Wheels, are the Canadian MLS sides really this bad?
First off, I love power rankings because it gets people so fired up. How dare you put my team that low? It's just brilliant. But Canadian teams being disrespected in these MLS power rankings, it's nothing new. And I'm sympathetic to the people that are casting their vote because Major League Soccer is very difficult to follow. There are 29 teams. In the Canadian Premier League, I have 8 teams to keep my finger on the pulse of as of right now. It's much more easy because I see every team play on a week-to-week basis. It is impossible to know what all 29 teams are doing. And in American League, Canadian teams are oftentimes overlooked or maybe not focused upon as much as the other ones. So I understand it that way. When it comes to these specific power rankings, it's still early, guys. They always love to say that. It's early. But Vancouver is the one that I just simply don't understand because if you watched Major League Soccer over the course of 2023 and saw dug into the data a little bit more, Vancouver Whitecaps, there's no way they're a bottom third team in Major League Soccer. In fact, I put them right close near the top of the Western Conference. Last season, in terms of expected goal differential, they were the third best team in the Western Conference and 6th best overall. 4th in expected goals, 11th in expected goals against, 2nd in the Western Conference in terms of goals scored. And I don't know about you, I kind of like their off-season moves. Krylak, Picault bringing a little bit more experience into this team. Another full season of Ali Ahmed, Sam Adekubi in this team from the hop. Well, we'll see how fit he is heading into the weekend. But my point is, I don't think that this team is going in the other direction. Another year of White and Gauld, and Vite's moving in the right direction, and Laborda's moving in the right direction. I can't see, if you even follow Major League Soccer even just a little bit, how you can have Vancouver Whitecaps somewhere in the 20s. And by the way, they're going to have big crowds all season long. The 50th anniversaries, there's some buzz and there's some excitement around this team. The Whitecaps are the one for me. I think that CF Montreal are going to be vastly improved as well. I really like their moves over the course of the offseason, but you got to go and improve it. And same thing goes for Toronto FC. Another team I think is going to be improved, but they need to prove it. So to answer your question in a roundabout way, are the Canadian teams this bad? I'm going to say no to probably not. That's the best way that I can put it.
Jordan Wilson.
Look, the first thing we got to address, Vancouver, if I'm a Vancouver Whitecaps player, I am posting that power ranking. I said the disrespect. It's almost blasphemous. They're a good team. And they're playing in a Western Conference. Like they are not where whoever did this put them that low. They are not that low. No chance. As Will said, this is a team that play attacking way. I like them. They're almost charismatic, obviously outside of their trainer, but just the way that they go about their business. They're a team that you want to get behind. Even Montreal, I feel like there's a slight disrespect. Yeah, I would say that they'll be in the mid-bottom third of the MLS. Again, this is 29 teams we're talking about, but I still don't think they're just like one better than TFC. Am I correct with where the power rankings
right.
fall? Like,
I believe last season, Jordan, to start, and Adam, you can correct me, like, weren't they dead last in the power rankings to start last season?
They were low.
CF Montreal.
No,
and the team is way better now. Like, there was incremental gains over the course of last season in terms of personnel and players acquired.
I know it's only one game as well. You're looking at the Orlando City game. Yes, they should have. I think Orlando could have scored, but you could also say the same for CF Montreal. I think they'll be a better team this year. I cannot put them at the bottom. Is there a little bit of Canadian bias? I mean, I think a hint, maybe a sprinkle, but facts are facts. I think this is a stronger team. Sierra, I think Martinez coming in as a striker. I think CF Montreal will make playoffs this season. How far they go, who knows? And they barely missed it last season just by 2 points. Like, they were right around the cusp, and they weren't a great team by any stretch. They are definitely better this season. Probably the only team, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, that maybe the power rankings are correct with, is TFC. But Vancouver and Montreal, they've definitely put them lower than they should be.
Can I just put a shout out? Major League Soccer, if you need a Canadian perspective, give me a call. You know my number. I am very good at judging everything. So there we go.
He's in fact one of the, if not the best judge that I personally know in my life. Let's talk a little bit about Vancouver Whitecaps. They're opening their season, as mentioned, this weekend, tomorrow, in fact, against Charlotte. And with some of the little nuggets you allude to there in what you've liked about their offseason, Gareth, and for Jordan, the fact that we got to see them play Tigres really, really well, and the atmosphere of it, the 50th anniversary, the new kits, the buzz. Jordan, what are you expecting from them tomorrow as they officially get their campaign underway?
I'm expecting a win. I think out of the gates, this is just how Vancouver Whitecaps had. They had the privilege, obviously they earned it, but just of playing 2 important matches before. I think that, now you've had a bit of a break, but I think coming into the season, everyone's just trying to find their feet the first couple games, 2-3 games. But Vancouver Whitecaps said, this is their time to really go and get 3 points. It's so important in the beginning of the season, because when you get down to the end of the stretch, it's sometimes the 2 points, the 3 points that separate going to playoffs or where you sit. So I think this team will hit the ground running. I think they're improved. I think that there's some continuity within that squad that will keep them playing longer. And I personally, just looking at both sides on paper, I think Vancouver Whitecaps are a stronger side.
Gareth, Mr. Good at judging everything.
Here we go.
I agree with that.
Last time I checked, there's no home and garden show at BC Place this weekend. So the game's going to take place there. A place at home where the Whitecaps only lost 3 times all of last MLS season. So they're a very good side at home. They're coming off having a week off to prepare, reflect upon their 2 games in Champions Cup, and then watch essentially Charlotte and the rest of Major League Soccer play last week, resting up ahead of a big home game. Charlotte, since they came into the league, are dire away from home in the Western Conference. Only 2 wins against Western Conference teams away from home. We should mention Vanni Sartini, our guy, he's suspended for the first 6 games of the season. So is Laborda. But with a record crowd, over 27,000 seats sold for this game at BC Place, I think Vancouver is going to be up for it. I'd be surprised, very surprised, if they don't come away with a full 3 points.
And Wheels, right back to you. TFC away to FC Cincinnati to start their season. They get that bit of a gritty 0-0 draw. And then John Herdman goes out and does some shopping with his hometown club, signing Matty Longstaff to add to the back line. Your thoughts on what's to come against New England this weekend?
Great name, by the way, Longstaff. The Matty part, how do you decide? Is his name Matthew? Is it Matty? Is it Matt? Mateo? But welcome to Toronto, Matty Longstaff. By the way, thank you very much to the social media people that work at Toronto FC to show him score on his debut against Manchester United, just to rub it in a little bit more. And he suffered an ACL injury back at the end of 2022. He's been on the road to recovery. His brother still plays for Newcastle, but he was out of contract and provides a decent landing spot here. Some risk for 2+ years. English players, for whatever reason, don't always live up to their expectations in Major League Soccer. It's a league where Central American, South American players seem to leave much more of an indelible mark. Maybe it's the travel, maybe it's the playing surfaces. I'm not sure what it is. Longstaff will help, that is, a team with a very thin midfield. I really like their commitment, their style of play that Herdman had them going in game number 1. But 2 questions: depth Longstaff will help the midfield depth. I think that was one of the areas that they're very thin. The other one, who's going to score goals for this Toronto FC team? 8 consecutive away fixtures in Major League Soccer without an away goal. This team hasn't won an away in Major League Soccer in 21. So a tough place to go on the turf of Gillette Stadium against the Revolution. Under Caleb Porter, they had 12 home wins last season, second most in all of Major League Soccer. So it's another statement game. A couple suspensions and injuries for the Revolution. They played midweek in the Champions Cup, but still a really tough one for Toronto FC this weekend.
Yeah, of course, Longstaff to the midfield, not the back line. That's my bad. Jordan, let's reset this to you. See if Montreal are going to continue their away trip. And they get to go to FC Dallas, who, if we are still taking these power rankings as gospel, we're ranked number 6.
Yeah, it's a tall order ask. I think in the beginning of the season, Dallas is a good squad, and I will say this: going into these games, especially in the beginning, sometimes when you play a team that is superior, you just have to go maybe and try to get that point. I think for Montreal, that's a fine result going into second match of the season. And when I'm just looking at highlights or even watching the game from last week with CF Montreal, there's something there. It's just about finishing the chances. I would say similar to TFC in terms of who's going to be a guy. I think they have options, though. Martinez coming off the bench. There was a sitter in the 79th. You put that in, the leading line. But I like the way that CF Montreal are playing and how they started the season. But like I said, these MLS games are so hard to predict. The 29 teams, it's like, just being sharp on the day, one can top the other. When you're looking at it, it's hard for me to say right now that CF Montreal are going to get 3 points. Get a draw if you can get lucky on the day, but Dallas is a very
they've never won in Dallas before, so it would be a first. But I think that Orlando and Dallas play similar styles, so that might pay off. Stay well organized and see what we can get out of this.